WNYC. Today's program is a brief snapshot of this park's evolution, with sites setting on its importance as an open green space to all who enjoy it. Our commemorative presentation is a joint partnership with New York City Department of Parks and Recreation and the Friends of WNYC Transmitter Park. We would like to send out a very special thank you to North Brooklyn Parks Alliance for technical assistance and Broadway Stages for their programming support. Special thanks to Dandelion Wine for their fundraiser for the Friends of WNYC Transmitter Park, with proceeds going to the care of this space. We would like to acknowledge New York City Parks Commissioner Sue Donahue and Brooklyn Commissioner Marty Mayer. A special thank you to Mary Salig, Director of North Brooklyn Park, Vinnie Piccolo, Park and Recreation Manager, Roderick Phillips, Brooklyn Horticulture Manager, Mr. Armstrong, Maintenance Crew Leader, woo! James Ketchell of the New York City Parks and Recreation Tree Trust, along with all the New York City Parks crew that support this park and help the Friends of WNYC Transmitter Park. Additionally, we want to gratefully acknowledge and thank everyone that participated in shaping this park's incredible design in partnership with the Parks Department and their designers, including Brooklyn Community Board 1, Open Space Alliance, now North Brooklyn Parks Alliance, or NBPA, and the original Friends of Transmitter Park. Thank you to Partnership for the Parks, New York City Green Fund, City Parks Foundation, and Greenpoint Tree Corps for all you do to help this park. Much gratitude to New York City, the state of New York, and federal government for funding this wonderful park. We acknowledge mural artists Patrick Miller and Patrick McNeil of Fale, and curator Stephen Donoforio for, as well. New Love City Yoga for donating our new willow tree, and Howard Klein for his ongoing annual plant donation that can be seen in the Kent Street Cornflower Garden. Thank you to Susan Anderson and Town Square for hosting all the volunteers and an annual summer outdoor film program and engaging our youth to get involved. Last but not least is a giant thank you to all our volunteers and supporters for always showing up, tirelessly pitching in, no matter the task. Now for a few words about the Friends of Transmitter Park. Revived in 2016, we are an all-volunteer community-based organization dedicated to protecting and caring for WNYC Transmitter Park in partnership with local community, New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. We value WNYC Transmitter Park as a sanctuary and refuge for insects, birds, plants, and wildlife, and honor it as a sacred common space for Greenpointers, New Yorkers, and all who visit this park. As our neighborhood undergoes drastic transformation, we seek to preserve the spirit of WNYC Park, especially the equity of access to the waterfront, open air, and passive green space, which we all regard as invaluable for human life. Now more than ever, we know what access to public open space provides to every living being. As a volunteer group of stewards for the park, as well as representatives of Greenpoint and North Brooklyn communities, we aim to fulfill our mission to safeguard and cultivate WNYC Transmitter Park for the benefit and enjoyment of all. By dedicating our efforts for a cleaner, greener, and safer community life for all that visit and enjoy this space. Plans for the coming growing season are to maintain and expand our volunteer base, reinvigorate our Greenpoint Avenue Garden as a pollinator welcome garden with funding from New York City Green Relief and Recovery Fund. Yay. Perhaps our most ambitious goal is to find partners to help reinvigorate our historic Art Deco building. At the very least, we hope to get a coat of paint on the building this fall. In keeping with the passive beauty of this park, we're beginning to foster dialogue and conversations to bring a modular community education space, a germination station, if you will, for programming in keeping with the spirit of the park's broadcast history. Also included in the vision is a space for New York City parks, and finally, the installation of much-needed bathrooms. I would like to introduce my colleagues on the current steering committee and thank them all for all they contribute to this park. Please stand. Steve Chesler, Sante Michele, Francois Olivas, and Shane Spencer. I would also like to thank previous committee members who have laid the foundation for this group. Katie Nepolitarsky, who is right here, Kim Frazier, and Bridget McFadden. Thank you all. Our first speaker, Ty Duvo, or Gijig, is a citizen from the Onondaga and Anishinaabe nations. He is an interdisciplinary story artist, Grammy Award-winning composer, lyricist, playwright, librettist, actor, choreographer, eagle, and hoop dancer. Ty interweaves artistic projects with social justice, indigeneity, trans rights, indigiqueering, and environmentalism. Ty is an arts equity facilitator, co-founder of Indigenous Direction with Larissa Fasthorse, and member of All My Relations Collective. He has degrees from Cal Arts, Goddard College, NYU Tisch School of the Arts. He lives in New York City and loves the color clear. Please welcome Ty for our dedication today.
Nando aganog. Ishigandish na cause was waganin nandun pa magazin nandodam. Wamanong kiwedeno. Mikwach kae kego apaganin agat. Kishamane an a.
What I'm going to do is with a microphone. So I just want to say, bonjour, hello, friends, welcome. So aniniji is how we say it in the Anishinaabe language. You just take your hand high in the air like this, and you say aniniji.
Aniniji.
All right, and that is to all of you, but it's also to the two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, the rooted, and the creepy callers. We take our hand and we say aniniji.
Aniniji.
This is a welcoming, a hello to the earth and to the sky. I'm humbled to be asked to do this, what is a land reverence, right? A reverence for the land of these great waters that sit next to this exact park, to commemorate our time together here today and the times that have been happening. I'd like to, actually, I'm going to play a drum song. And if you would, this is a song that is of the Algonquian speaking people from land of the Lenape people, the Lenape territories, that honors all living things. And so if you feel comfortable and if you can stand, we're gonna face each one of the directions to give thanks to this location here at Transmitter Park, to the stewards that are taking care of it, to the fish and the waters here that are now coming back to us, right? Because of the care and the stewardship of all living things. So we're gonna face the direction east first. And you can put your hands in the air. You can, take in that energy of the air, of the trees, of this great park. And we're gonna start in the east, then we're going to the south, the west, and the north, the earth and the sky, yeah? And so this is a honor song for all living things. Te hanik te, yay, te hanik te, te hanik te, iho kipik maya inaya, te hanik te, we'll face the south. Te hanik te, yay, te hanik great sky above. Te hanig day, yay, te hanig day, yay, te hanig day, yay, yo kipith maya inaya, te hanig day, yay, yay. Alright, so miigwech gijeman do adapanan aaw sema. Adapanan aaw asema. On this day today we are gathered here. The song is a representative song that as we walk through this park, as we walk by these waters, as we walk by these trees, and we see each other to give recognition to all of our relatives in all of the directions, and also the earth, and let us not forget the sky. So as today is with great honor on behalf of the Haudenosaunee people and the Anishinaabe nations that I'm here speaking the language, reinvigorating and revitalizing this great nature that's around us to flourish so that we can flourish in our lives, right? Because we are all connected. The two-legged, the four-legged, the winged, the rooted, from earth to sky and back again. Miigwech.
It's really special to be here today, celebrating 10 years of WNYC Transmitter Park. It is not the biggest park in New York City, but it is one that we love deeply. I think that we would all agree that the rezoning of the Greenpoint-Williamsburg waterfront didn't work out as we might have hoped. I might say that our community got snookered by the whole darn thing. And 10 years, well, 15 years later after the rezoning, we have one new park space to show for it. Right, we were promised multiple waterfront parks, and we are still fighting as hard as ever to see each and every inch of that promised park realized. But this right here is the one new park that we so far have to show. And we love this park. You know, I love seeing Elisa and Steve out here every weekend, working to improve it, really reviving a friends group and making it so dynamic. You know, we had tough fights with the developer here. We've got fights ahead to see this space transformed, the old WNYC building, to see our bathroom finally created here at the park. There are many good fights ahead. And I want you all to know that you can count on my support and Emily and our new state senator, Kristen. It's so good to get to see you formally at a neighborhood event.
It's my pleasure to be here today. I was here 10 years ago. I wasn't working in this role at that time, so I don't know anything about the opening, but it was wonderful to be here then. It's wonderful to be here now to celebrate 10 years of this wonderful green space. I think this park is probably one of the oldest, newest green spaces in Greenpoint, if that makes sense. The community input, though, that went into this park, that went into the design, that went into the input in the review, that created this beautiful space continues to this day. We see it at every community board meeting. We see it at every scoping meeting. We see it, I think, in every email I get from members of this community. We've made really great progress on opening and enhancing open space in North Brooklyn since we opened this transformative space, and we still have more coming. We still have more parks to see. We continue to work with Lincoln, with Katie, and with the Friends of Transmitter Park, of Bushwick Inlet Park, and other community members to make more significant investment in the creation, improvement, and expansion of parks in Greenpoint and in Williamsburg. Parks is so grateful for our partners in the Friends of Transmitter Park and in the North Brooklyn Parks Alliance. These partnerships are so important to make sure that parks aren't just open, but are thriving and energized.
Yes, thank you, Elisa, and thank you for having me. It's really an honor to be here to celebrate Transmitter's 10-year anniversary on such a picture-perfect day. So I've only been in parks for about 5 months, but during that time I've gotten to work closely with Elisa and with the Friends of Transmitter, and I've gotten to see the amazing work they do on a monthly basis. And so over the course of 2022, they will have hosted 13 It's My Park projects and 3 corporate events. And during these volunteering events, they've focused a lot on maintaining the gardens. They've done tons of weeding. They've mulched the gardens several times. They've taken care of the young trees throughout the park, which have desperately needed water and upkeep with the drought and hot conditions this summer.
You really got me thinking about the history of this space and the many purposes that it has served through time. And, you know, today I get to come to this park, and every time I've come here, someone's getting married in the park or getting their photos taken here. And I just think about how many people's memories this park has become a part of, and how many of us feel ownership over this park. And I too feel ownership over this park because it was one of the first projects that I worked on with NAG and others.
This is where we launched our first ever Greenpoint canvas. And for me, you know, this park represents the future of our city because it represents what public parks can and should be. It was city-owned land that we demanded to have as community space. It's a way of collaborating. It's a way where we brought in activists and every member of this community to say that the future of this city is green, that we deserve our public spaces, we deserve our public land, and that we can have a park like this that is so close to the water, close to the city, and care for it ourselves if given the right investment and support and with the right leadership from all of you. So I'm so excited to not only continue to fight for this park, but to work with Assembly Member Emily Gallagher, to work with City Council Member Lincoln Ressler, and every person who has been part of this process to not only make sure that we continue to care for Transmitter Park, but to show that just like we won here, we're going to continue to win new parks in our neighborhood. We're going to fight for Box Street Park. We're going to fight for Bushwick Inlet Park.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be back here again, and I'm glad to see some of the plants that I put in the ground there are thriving despite my lack of a green thumb. So my mission as Community Partnerships Editor at WNYC is to have meaningful conversations with New York City's diverse communities to understand the needs and interests and to find innovative ways to amplify the voices of our great city. So I was pleased to start the conversation with Friends of Transmitter Park when I came here a couple of months ago with my colleagues to do some planting. It was a great day of planting, and it was a great day of meaningful conversation about the history of this neighborhood, about the evolution of this site, and about what this park means to this community today. Open spaces like this provide a great way to bring community together. They provide a great way to foster dialogue. And I look forward to continuing to explore ways to engage with Friends of Transmitter Park to foster conversations about important issues that impact our communities here in Brooklyn, but throughout the city, and also to amplify the voices of its residents. Our city, our stories.
First off, in 1935, WNYC's chief engineer Isaac Grimberg and his crew began drawing up plans for rebuilding the station's studios and relocating the transmitter to a site across the East River here in Greenpoint, a section of Brooklyn. For more than 50 years, from 1937 to 1990, WNYC's signal came from 304-foot twin transmitting towers that bookended this site. They and the transmitter house building over there were considered state-of-the-art radio technology when the facility went online on Halloween 1937. That day, another crowd gathered here to dedicate the site, and the Christian Science Monitor wrote at the time that the facility was, quote, ready to send the voice of WNYC around the world. Each one of these towers resembles the famous Eiffel Tower of France. It was very much a rebirth for WNYC, which Frederick Cracky, the Commissioner of Plant and Structures, then WNYC's parent agency, said was nearly a useless shambles when Mayor LaGuardia came into office in January 1934. The truth be told, one of LaGuardia's campaign planks was the elimination of WNYC to save taxpayer money. And soon after arriving at City Hall, LaGuardia sent a young Seymour N. Siegel across the street to, as Siegel told it, shut down the joint. Fortunately, Siegel, later WNYC's director, saw that WNYC had promise, and it was for the moment spared and placed on probation and studied by a blue ribbon panel of experts. At the same time, New York, like the rest of the nation, was going through some hard times, and it was in no small measure that the Depression-era Federal Works Progress Administration, or WPA, came to WNYC's rescue. That agency put out-of-work musicians on the air. WPA artists filled our studios with modern art, and WPA engineers and construction workers not only built this facility, but rebuilt WNYC's main studios in the municipal building. You see, WNYC's original inverted L antenna was literally a hose of cables strung from the pedestal of Civic Fame, the statue at the top of the Manhattan Municipal Building, across the building's north roof to its 26th floor parapet. The facility here allowed WNYC to eliminate transmission dead spots, a result of lower Manhattan's tall steel buildings, as well as signal loss from the steel in the municipal building itself. This transmitter house here in Greenpoint was also equipped with an emergency micro-ray relay, as they called it, the only one in the country at the time. The wireless relay allowed them to send content from the studios at the municipal building to this site, and in reverse as well. It was then noted that that same micro-ray relay was also used at the time, again, rarely used, by the Pope at his summer palace just outside the Vatican. And it was here on October 31st, 1937, that Mayor LaGuardia pledged to improve WNYC's programs and enlarge the station staff. He also, curiously enough, talked about WNYC being the flagship station of a cultural network of non-commercial educational stations. The economic underpinning of this prophetic proposal was the distribution of programming by shortwave rather than costly landlines. Mayor LaGuardia was trying to get around the pre-satellite era dependence on landlines controlled by the telephone company. But the FCC, despite his lobbying efforts, did not agree, and since the signal quality of that kind of programming retransmitted via shortwave was just not good enough when compared to landlines. Still, it was a vision of WNYC few, if any, would have predicted from Mayor LaGuardia, from 3.5 years earlier. The coming of FM and World War II put an end to such talk, as there were more pressing priorities. The wartime WNYC broadcasts from this site were vital to the metropolitan area, and the station got special permission from the FCC to keep the transmitter here going well after sundown each night. We weren't 24 hours a day back then. And all this was done in an effort to keep New Yorkers informed of the latest developments around the world. Through the 1950s and the Cold War period, this site and WNYC's use of it were a critical part of the city's civil defense communications network, with WNYC as the hub for information going out both to the public and the city's other broadcast stations. And finally, speaking personally, I would like to say it is my hope that the park continues to serve this neighborhood well, and that the transmitter building here gets a new lease on life, as it's not only a rare WPA building, and I'm not aware of any other WPA-built transmitter buildings, but also I believe it's a really important part of New York City's history. Thank you.
We're immigrants. I came here as an immigrant, and my fellow immigrants then were the Puerto Ricans, and all of the non-indigenous populations that sought, I guess, the American dream. Do you know what we used to do because we had no real parks here? Sundays after church, we'd take the G train to Church Avenue and then further, and hundreds of families would go to Prospect Park and have picnics.
The reason why this park is such a gem and an anchor of open space in Greenpoint, much like Bushwick Inlet Park is in Williamsburg, is because, as Mary Salix Hussein said, it was the first new park to be opened. So I'm sure many of you remember that moment when the first time that it opened in 2010, I believe, when it was all mulch, right? And that was the first time you could actually walk through the gates in this lifetime, post WNYC, and access the water in a way that was legal. It broke ground that year, and we lost access for a couple years until it actually reopened, which was, as Lincoln said, in August of 2012. But today, September 10th, was the exact date 10 years ago that was the formal official opening that Lincoln referenced with the official ribbon cutting and everything else. As advocates, it's essential for us to continue that advocacy, to continue the original vision where this park wasn't the only park on the waterfront. So right now, the way you get to this park is you're going down West Street, you've got Kent Avenue, you've got Greenpoint Avenue. You can't access this park from the north or the south. In the vision that WAP and the Open Space Alliance, Community Board 1, New York City Parks originally put together more than a decade ago, this was one of many parks. Those of you who know the plan of this community, you should be able to go north of here, look at Long Island City, and walk all the way down along an open space parkland, right? We are very, very far from there, but this is the anchor of that original plan. This is sort of the home base of that overall plan for Greenpoint. And so, we stand with all of our partners to ensure that that contiguous open space waterfront will continue to be developed and be a priority among our elected officials.
Let me take you on a trip of park design in North Brooklyn. First off, Transmitter Park. We love this park and its design. The shoreline treatment, the bridge over the historic inlet, the curved and varied pathways. Now, let's put this design into some historical context. Shortly following the 2005 rezoning, two important documents were created by the Parks Department and the New York City Department of City Planning: the Greenpoint Williamsburg Open Space Master Plan and the Waterfront Design Guidelines Text Amendment. To quote from the documents, to quote some of the goals of these documents. The master plan encourages alternatives to conventional and potentially stark, monotonous bulkhead wall, to create interest and variety, allow the main path to meander along the shoreline, and encourage interaction with the water's edge and promote diverse shoreline edge treatments.
I've never been to a 10th anniversary for a park before. Groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, but never a 10th anniversary. And that's not all that's new or unique about this park, because if you just pointed out, this was the first waterfront park to break, and that's only 10 years ago, to break down the old bulkhead wall and put in riprap instead, so the community could have a closer relationship to the water. And that's because of your advocacy. It's only the second waterfront green space, and as far as I know, the first waterfront park to be planted with native species so that it would attract birds and insects. And that again is down to your advocacy and continuing on with your hard work. So people also wanted to fish here in their own community. And so they have here in the neighborhood. And so we have Claire Weiss's wonderful pier. But as I said, these things were only possible because of your advocacy, for your strong participation in the design process, and for the truly inspiring work that you all do. And I'm saying the Friends, but know that includes all the other organizations like WAP that came before to make all this possible. The work that you do in programming, education, and most of all gardening, And, you know, those really glamorous tasks that I see on your Instagram site, like the dragging those bags of weeds across the walkway to be picked up and picking the garbage out of the plant beds. When people ask me what my favorite of my projects is, and as you can tell, I've had a long career, it's Transmitter Park. And it's not because of any design, move, or clever detail. It's because of all of you taking this place to a different level. So I thank you all for that. I also, since we have a few more seconds here, just want to make a case to the elected officials and soon to be elected officials of how important maintenance is. And that's not about just picking up the garbage or sweeping. It is early in the design process where designers can't do things because the public parks, state parks and New York City parks don't have the money to maintain things that the highly funded projects with big expensive bids around them can do. So just recently,
Thank you. And I'll just say, you know, I came to Transmitter Park in celebrations about 3 or 4 years ago, and there was a pine tree and it was just in a little box, and we made a little circle, and the weather was not quite right that day. We were inside, indoors, but we had the thought, the intentionality of planting this tree with the American Indian Community House, as well as other Indigenous members, which I'm grateful to be speaking here along with that community. And this pine tree is planted over on the other side of this building. So if you get a chance to, when you do your ribbons, if you could check out that tree, and it's growing, it has a life. And so I just want to thank all of the volunteers, all of the people who have been maintaining that and stewarding and fostering reciprocal relations with our tree friends, our plant relatives, right? Because it takes the community, it takes everyone to do that. And that being said, I'm going to read this poem, and this poem is by a dear friend of mine, as well as my native auntie, Joy Harjo. He's a 2-time poet laureate of the United States of America, or Turtle Island. And this poem is called Remember. And giving this poem, and I wanted us to think about these words and these stories that we heard today, the people speaking and talking, the advocacy, and thinking about you know, remembering the past so that we can remember forward, right? Take care of this park here today at Transmitter Park. So this is a poem called Remember by Joy Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the star stories. Remember the moon, know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn, that this is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life, her mother's and hers. Remember your father, he's your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants and trees, animals' life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive. Poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people are you. Remember, you are this universe. Remember, all is motion. It is growing in you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember that dance is language and that life is. Remember.